Hello there and welcome. I'm Naomi Kinsman, an author and the founder of Society of Young Inklings. When I was in second grade, I had the opportunity to submit my writing to a writing contest, and a writer looked at my work and then looked me in the eye and said, "You are a writer. You have something important to say." Now that just entirely changed my life. It helped me to know that my words had power. And so when I grew up, I actually became an author, but I kept dreaming of ways to connect with youth in that same way, to help people like you know that your words matter. So today we are going to be working on finding ways to make those words connect with readers. And we're going to talk about strategies for showing instead of telling. Now, we all have heard the writing adage, show, don't tell. But sometimes it's a little bit puzzling because when we think about showing and not telling, we feel like we have shown, and then somebody points out in our writing a place where maybe we have not yet really brought a sentence or a scene to life in vivid detail. So as you're trying to figure out the best ways to do this, we need to think about how to create a mental movie in a reader's mind. So we're going to play a game to get this started. We're going to think about first anger. So I want you to go ahead and shake out your hands, shake out your shoulders, shake out your legs. It turns out that our bodies are even more brilliant sometimes than our brains. So when I say on the count of 3, I want you to strike a pose of what you might be doing when you're angry. Let's see what happens. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, so my body brought up my fists and I made a face and I felt like I might want to punch someone, right? Now that's one thing, but I was just thinking in sort of a general blank empty space. What really helps with the character is to think about where this character is angry. So imagine that you are angry in your bedroom. You've just had a fight with your little sister or brother or with a parent and you slam the door. Don't do this at home. You shouldn't slam the door, but let's say you did, and then you flop onto the bed. Now, what are you going to do because you're mad? You're on the bed, so you could pummel the bed with your fists, or you could pick up a pillow and throw it across the room, or you could kind of beat your head against a pillow, right? There's lots of different things you could do with the props that are in your space. And this is another way that we can borrow from the theater as we think about if an actor was in this scene, in this space with these items, what could they do that would be showing that they are angry? And the more you can make it specific to this space, the less it will feel like you keep writing over and over again, she balled up her fists. Because if you want to use this in a story, you know, she got angry, so she balled up her fists, we don't want to have to say that over and over and over again. So we have to think of other ways to say the same kinds of things. So if one time she throws a book across the room because she's at the library, again, not a good idea. Or she throws a pillow across the room in her bedroom. Now you have some different ways that your character can interact and show her anger. We're going to think about another one. We've been thinking about a negative emotion, anger, but let's think about an excited emotion, surprise. Now, surprise is a hard thing to think about because if I ask you the last time that you were surprised, you probably will look back and you'll think, I can't remember one. Because the fact is, in afterthought, we can't remember surprise because we aren't surprised anymore. We know what happened. However, there's a lot of times in our lives where we are surprised by things. In fact, the other day I was walking around outside and the sun sort of came up through the clouds and it was in the middle of a sunset, so it was really beautiful and colors were streaking the clouds. But the sun just came out in this way that made me just stop. And I just had that moment of, wow, it's so beautiful. That's a moment of surprise. It doesn't have to be this exceptional surprise birthday party, though, of course, that's a surprise moment as well. So let's think about what a body might do when it is feeling surprised, okay? So we're going to try this again with our bodies. We're going to shake out a hand, shake out another hand, shake out our shoulders, and on the count of 3, we're going to think, what would my body do if I was surprised? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I just grabbed my stomach, you can't see that, and I also put my hand kind of close to my mouth. Again, kind of a generic thing that I might do. She gasped and covered her mouth. Well, I could write that, but that might be a little bit boring, so let's think about what I might do in a particular situation. We talked about a surprise birthday party. Let's not just have it be a generic birthday party. Let's have it be a birthday party at a roller skating rink. So you are driving around with your family and you don't know what's happening, but it is close to your birthday, and they pull into the roller skating rink and you don't know why, and they say, come on inside, and you think, oh good, we get to go roller skating, but you come inside and you look around and the whole roller skating rink is full of your friends and family, and everybody turns to you and they shout, surprise, and balloons sort of fly up into the air and maybe even some confetti. And so what do you do then? Maybe you reach out and grab the balloon and you just kind of stand there with a really big smile and you're so excited. Sometimes surprise might not even look like a big gasp. It might just look like you don't even know what to say. Your eyes get big and you just sort of freeze for a moment like a deer in the headlights. And then what do you do next? Well, maybe you go around and hug each one of your friends, or maybe you put on roller skates and you go roller skating to kind of get some of that excited adrenaline out of you. All of these things that we can do with our bodies help show the reader how we feel. Now, let's get to the underlying principle of what showing instead of telling means. So instead of saying, she was angry, he was surprised, she decided that he would be her best friend. When we tell somebody that, it's like we put our hand out and sort of shove them away by their chest. So if the reader is reading along, they get this feeling of just being kind of shoved further away because we put a label on how somebody feels or an emotional experience. So if I say, I decided to be her friend, it's kind of giving you that factual information without any of the background, without the story, without the emotional nuances of it. And what that means is your reader just sort of takes in the information as a fact. But what we want them to do is we want them to feel that experience, and we want them to connect with the experience in the way that they might feel it themselves. So instead, we might tell the story of sitting at the lunch table outside, eating our peanut butter and jelly sandwich, looking around the schoolyard and noticing that everybody seems to be paired up with somebody else. And here we are eating our peanut butter jelly sandwich. Nobody's sitting anywhere close to us. And we just take one sticky bite after the next, hoping that nobody is noticing that we're all by ourselves. But then when our mouth is full of peanut butter, somebody sits down across the table from us, and she has these really, really beautiful blue eyes behind these dark glasses, and she has blonde pigtails, and she's got freckles and some lines that make us sure that she probably smiles quite a bit because she's got some lines right by her cheeks. And she looks at us in the eye and she says, is that a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? And we say, mm-hmm. And she says, can I have a bite? So we give her the other half of our sandwich and she says, I'll trade you. And she hands us her chocolate pudding and we have a bite. And now the experience might go on, but suddenly you start to have that feeling of what it means to make a new friend. It's not the same as just saying she became my friend that day. It's that little scene. It's that interaction between these two people. It's the details of having your mouth stuck with peanut butter and wanting to say something to her, or that she shared her food with you. So I put together a little cheat sheet for you so that you can do some before and after work. I love makeovers where somebody starts in one way and then they transform and then they become another way. So whether it's clothes or a bedroom or just anything, it's really fun to do a before and after. So that's what this worksheet actually does for you. You can choose something that feels like a before. So Anna was grumpy. Okay, well, Anna is grumpy. So that could be this simple statement. But now we want to figure out how to show that she is grumpy. And that takes thinking about what is she doing with her body? Where is she? What could she be doing to interact with those props? Remember, anything in her space is fair game. So maybe she's sitting in the car and she's grumpy, and so she's kicking her feet against the dashboard. And her mom every once in a while is saying, Anna, stop kicking the dashboard. And she keeps kicking the dashboard. Kick, kick, kick. And mom says, Anna, stop kicking the dashboard. Kick, kick, kick. Anna, mom's voice is starting to rise. She's feeling a little frustrated. Stop kicking the dashboard. And Anna, oh, hits her fist against her leg and makes this giant groan, and Mom says, "What is it? What's wrong?" And then Anna has to try to figure out what is wrong. But we've shown this through the actions as opposed to saying that Anna was grumpy. Now, you can also do this with setting, and it's a really important thing actually to do with setting, because you don't just want to, again, like emotion, you want to put the reader into the experience of the place. Because when we tap into a reader's experience, then it's not just our words that they're hearing or reading, it's actually their own experiences that they're laying over the experience of what we're telling them about. So if I said it was a fierce storm, then they think, okay, they kind of label it in their mind, a fierce storm. But if we talk about the wind howling and we talk about the branches slapping against the window, sounding like flap, flap, flap. Now suddenly I can remember moments when I heard those branches flapping against the windows, or I can kind of hear in my mind that howl of the wind. All of those details bring to mind actual sensory details that we've experienced in our own lives. That's why it's important to include them. So you can also do this with a sentence before and after where you find the storm was fierce. Now, a really great way to find where you might be telling instead of showing is looking for words like is and was. Also felt. So those words, if you go through, kind of do a quick scan through your story, look for those words, see if you maybe have a simple sentence, and then try to do a before and after. And keep in mind, your after doesn't have to be just one sentence. It could be even a paragraph to really show us what was this like. Finally, I want to talk about dialogue. Now, on the worksheet or cheat sheet at the bottom, you'll see that it's talking about dialogue tags. Now, when I talk about dialogue tags, I like to think of them as gift tags a little bit, because if you think about, say, a celebration where lots of people get gifts. So if in your family you celebrate Christmas, if you can imagine, you've got all of these gifts under the tree. And if they didn't have gift tags, nobody would know who any of them were for. And sometimes the experience of reading a story feels a little bit like that, because there's all these pieces of dialogue and we don't know who is saying them because they don't have the proper tags. So we want to make sure to have a tag after each piece of dialogue so that we know who is speaking. But sometimes it feels a little bit boring to keep saying, Naomi said, or to say, the dog barked. Whatever it is, you want to make sure that you're figuring out ways to make your dialogue tags interesting. One way to do that is by using different words for said, like exclaimed or shouted or yelled or any of those other kinds of words like that. But keep in mind that when you use one of those specialty words, it's like shining a spotlight on that word. So your reader is actually going to stop and pay attention to that word and really think about it, which means that for a little moment, they're going to be pulled out of your story unless it's the perfect word for that moment. So usually writers try not to use some of those fancier words like that, and instead they try to use action tags. This goes back to showing instead of telling. So instead of saying Naomi said after a line, so let's say the line is, knock it off, Naomi shouted. Instead of saying that, why should I say Naomi shouted? I could just say, knock it off. Naomi took the pillow and threw it across the room, right? So you know that Naomi is the one shouting because she is the one who threw the pillow across the room, because they're on the same line together. That piece of action is like your little gift tag. It is your dialogue tag. So what you want to do when you're thinking about how to really make your dialogue shine is to think about, can I use some action to show what's going on here? One of the things that I like to do in the theater, we actually have this game called Open Scene, where you have these very general things that people might say. So one, we do player A and player B. So player A might say, hey, come here. And player B might say, what is it? And player A might say, you'll never believe it. And player B might say, I bet I would. And then we might go on just a little bit. So it's an open scene because that could mean anything. We could be in any setting. We could be doing anything. And one fun thing to do to practice your dialogue tags is to use a really general scene like that. You can write one up really quick. And then what you can do is you can go in and add action to make the scene completely different. So you could set it in a cupcake factory. And in the cupcake factory, you could be playing out what would be happening as they're trying to frost the vanilla cupcakes. Or what would happen if it was happening in a toy store? Or how might the lines go if they were doing this at the park? Or how might the lines go if they were in the living room? All of these different settings would give different props and different actions. And you can even change up the conflicts because the scene is so open that you can take it wherever you want to. You could think about, are the characters happy, or are they sad, or are they angry, and use the action to really show that. That's the fun thing with dialogue, is that you can actually use dialogue that is more general, and then you can use the action to really show what it is that's happening. Or you can even show sarcasm. So if somebody is saying, hey, you want to come to the party with me? And you want the other character to really mean no, but you want them to say, yeah, sure, right? Then you want to figure out, how can I have their body language go along with that? Yeah, sure, so that the reader knows that they're not saying, oh yeah, sure, but they're saying, yeah, sure, right? So you want to think about, how can I really show that with the body language and the action tags that I use? So this fun cheat sheet is actually a good one to print out multiple times, because you can take it and play with a lot of before and after sentences in any story. And I'll tell you from experience that no matter how many stories you've written, you'll still find sentences where you told somebody instead of showing. This is something you can always do to polish up your writing, no matter how many stories you've written, because it's something that we all kind of do as shorthand. We think, oh, she's angry, so we write it in as we're drafting. And then when you go back to revise and really make your work the very best it can be, this is a great opportunity to just make things even that much better in your story. Now, I want to invite you to show us one of your before and after sentences. So share the first sentence and then share how you've transformed it in the comment section below this video. We would love to see what you come up with. And teachers, if you're doing this with your kids, share a couple samples of the things that you noticed that they did. We would love to see some of those awesome transformed sentences. And keep in mind that we are in our Inklings book season, so you can head over to younginklings.org and submit your story or poem. You can RSVP right now if you're ready, you know you want to sign up, but you haven't finished your story. You can go ahead and you can sign up, and then you can submit your story when you're ready, so that we know to expect something from you. Also, know that we will be here again next Tuesday at 2:30. We're doing a special edition next Tuesday for parents. So parents, if you've ever wondered, how can I help my child be excited about writing or explore stories, even when we're just walking around the park or the neighborhood, or even when we're on our way to Target, how can I kind of infuse some of that magic of storytelling into our everyday lives? We are going to be talking about some very fun strategies to do that, very simple ways to make story a part of the everyday. And if you enjoy this content, we would be so grateful if you take a moment and share it with a friend. When you share this content with families and educators and advocates and people who care about creative writing, what you're actually doing is helping us connect with those creative youth that are like that little girl that I used to be, that really just needed someone to look them in the face and say, hey, you have something important to say. So we're so grateful for your help in spreading the word about this content, about our contest, and about our before and after sentences. And don't forget, we really want to see them. And if you're an adult and you think you don't have permission to share a before and after sentence, it's not true. You absolutely can share too. We'd love to hear from writers of any age. So share those in the comments below. And we look forward to seeing you next week at 2:30. See you soon.